Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the Sportscast podcast. Today we'll be looking at the fifth test from the Ashes, the Belgium Grand Prix, probably the fight of the year in boxing, a little bit of a roundup of the football and a look forward to the Rugby World Cup with the summer series starting this weekend.
Formula One.
Yeah.
So jumping straight into the Formula One, this week from Spa in Belgium, very, 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 very wet weekend.
The irony is this year's was sponsored by MSC Cruises, so the trophy was a boat.
Yeah, sorry, obviously geographically located in Northern Europe, or more northern like Greece and obviously Spain, and they've been having record temperatures. We've had a pretty rubbish summer in the UK, but equally they've obviously had an equally rubbish summer in Belgium. Torrential rain for practice, on and off for the race qualifying. Sprint qualifying was delayed, therefore the sprint was delayed. The weather was a big factor all weekend, except in the actual race. I think there's a little bit of
dubiousness in regards to wasn't there coming around sort of lap 18, lap 20, but which it did all for
I think
5 minutes.
4 or 5 minutes. They said it was going to be heavy for 10 minutes. I think it was spitting for 4 or 5. None of the teams went on to Inters, which would have mixed it up a little bit. I think there was some questionable strategy calls had the rain come really, really heavy.
Couple went early on softs, didn't they? I think Stroll went and
Lando went,
Russell
like
went,
literally as it started to rain, Lando went to softs, and I was thinking, oh great, slicks, another set of slicks. No, it wasn't the best decision-making process, but luckily it paid off for them. Let's rewind slightly, talk about the sprint. I really enjoyed the sprint. I thought it was... I don't think, even though I enjoyed the sprint, I enjoy all sprints. I just thought it was the wrong track for a sprint.
I don't know. I quite liked it on there because Spa's always gives a lot of overtaking. It's long straights.
But that's my sort of sprint is supposed to be fast and high intensity, and a 7 kilometre track with just under 2 minute lap time. I don't know. I don't know if it plays into the intensity sprint format.
Long straights though, the on the throttle for so long, I think for me is what gives it that sheer pace. It's predominantly a good overtaking track. Saw it in the race more probably, but weather conditions maybe played a bit of a factor on the sprint. Yeah. But I enjoyed it. Yeah. I always do at Spa. It's one of my favourite races on the calendar.
Happy with the result? It was a mixed podium.
The sprint, yes,
the sprint.
Very.
Piastri, obviously Verstappen on the top step.
I think we can bypass that for
Piastri on the second step and Gasly on third position.
I've got a bit of a soft spot for Gasly. I do like him as a racer and as a person as well. So to get there in that car as well at the minute was phenomenal.
Jubilation on Saturday for Piastri turned into bitter disappointment on Sunday. First corner, really, really unfortunate. Sainz on the outside of the corner, Piastri on the inside of the corner, locked up, took a bit of avoiding action, so he didn't go into Hamilton.
Probably want to clarify. I thought Sainz was on the inside of the corner and Piastri was on the inside of the corner. I thought Sainz really, really shut that off, and I was surprised it went down as a first lap race incident with how much he cut that off for him.
I agree. I think there's a little bit of conversation, especially around Hamilton's penalty from Saturday, around a penalty or a punishment should be as a result of the incident and not as a result of the consequence. And I think Perez Perez in the sprint retired, like had a really like massive hole there, and then he retired. Hamilton was given the penalty because Sainz caused the issue and therefore dropped right back to the very back of the grid. That's essentially his penalty. Whereas I still think that he should be given a penalty. Drivers, when they are given penalties as well, they get points on their super license. So
maybe that's where Sainz should have got. He shouldn't have maybe got anything in the race because it'd have been null void.
Yeah,
but points on his.
Yeah, but really disappointing for Piastri because he's in a very, very quick car at the moment, probably the second fastest on the grid.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it was a terminal incident and he retired halfway around lap one. So disappointing for him. Not disappointing for Max. Again, 8 races in a row. I think that is equal of a record.
His record.
Is it his record?
His record,
yeah, his record now. Red Bull 12 in a row now. Perez going into the summer break on a high.
I thought he had a good race. Max got driver of the day, 6th to 1st. I mean, did you see it in qualifying when Perez was getting held up towards the end of the chicanes and everyone was stacking back and he was on a fast lap and he just went through like middle of 6 cars, they all sort of sided. That's how it is with Max at the minute. That's how it looks. I don't think he should have got driver of the day from 6th to 1st when Piastri dropped back, Sainz dropped back because of the incident. He kind of was net 4th before he did anything. But Perez has done what he needed to do today. That was his task. Come second, and you probably kept yourself in the seat.
Yeah,
The
summer break is a very long time, and it's an opportunity for conversations to be had over beers, and that's when wheels start to turn and things get put into motion. And actually, that's probably the start of Danny Rick's downfall at McLaren.
Yeah.
Just one quick disappointing stat, before we move on to the cricket. Leclerc has now failed to win from pole 9 times in a row.
And I mean, that start of last season when he had, and the season before, he had quite a few to start with and didn't convert. I don't think it's Leclerc. I think it's the Ferrari race pace. They don't seem to have.
No, yeah. Whereas the Red Bull race pace is crazy.
It seemed to be qualifying sort of. I know he started on pole. He qualified second though. They seem to be qualifying 2nd to 5th, but then always finishing 5th to 8th.
Yeah.
They don't seem to have that race pace. Have you caught any of the... I know you've been a busy man this weekend. Have you caught any of the cricket?
Only snippets on TikTok.
Originally, started off very, very well. Brooke hit an 85 in the first innings, Root 91 in the second. Today's day 4, so we're not going to have an outcome on the podcast, but it left Australia this morning chasing 384, which is a record at the Oval, over 100 runs. So I think the record's about 268 from 1902 or something daft like that. So it's a big ask, but they have closed the day, Australia. So rain's taken a lot out of them.
Yeah.
But they have finished today on 135 for nothing. So their batters are doing what they need to come in and do to ensure that they can either bat this test out and for a draw, or potentially win this. You know, they need 250. They've still got 10 wickets in hand. I can probably see the pitch isn't moving much. Bit of cloud cover. The ball's not swinging. I can see it probably being batted out for a draw, if I'm completely honest.
Yeah. Which there's no pressure on Australia anyway. They're playing for fun and glory now, I
I
suppose.
think if I was Australia, I would play for the draw, so we win the series 2-1. If England win, it's 2-2, draw series, they retain the Ashes.
Yeah.
I'd want to win the series, albeit by a draw. But Australia don't care how they win.
Yeah.
The biggest news out of the weekend was the retirement of Stuart Broad. He announced yesterday after the third day that he's going to retire straight after this series. That's it. That's him done.
Done. Bang.
And a little bit gutted. I mean, he's a couple of years older than me. I've watched him throughout my cricket time, and you know, the guy has been. He could have very easily have been the greatest bowler of this era in English cricket, but England have had Jimmy Anderson, so it's a kind of like the Djokovic's and Federer. You've got two of the best bowlers potentially in the last 30, 40 years of England cricket at the same time. It's been fantastic. I don't think there's... I mean, Woods is good, Wokes is good, but they're not going to achieve the kind of things that Broad... I mean, Broad has... He's had 200... he's had 600 Test wickets, 178 in ODIs, first-class wickets. So all of his things combined is 948 wickets. I mean, Anderson's hit more. You'd probably be looking at maybe Brett Lee and Shane Warne. There's not going to be many bowlers with much more wickets than that. Yesterday, on the third day of the test, so it would have been when Australia was in to bat last time, on the first innings, he went over to the wickets and he swapped the bails over. And what it is, there's an Australian myth. The Aussies do it all the time because they believe it brings bad luck. And the batsman sort of says, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "You know what I'm doing." Bowled it, edged it, caught, first ball. And I think if that's not the way to leave, I mean, Broad is brilliant with his sledging, and with that happen with Carey and stuff, and his antics with pretending to play in the crease when Bairstow got thrown out. I mean, I love the character. He's not just a good bowler, he's a character probably to have around that dressing room as well. So, bit gutted he's going. Last night was probably the biggest fight that we'll see this year, inclusive of the heavyweights. For the boxing world, it's not the big names, but Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. So we've always been a massive Kell Brook fan here. And he sort of, towards the end of his career, he took the big fights. He took on Triple G, fractured his skull, took on Spence, which probably, Kell Brook was a fantastic world-class fighter. But you're dealing with Errol Spence, who at the minute, him and Crawford are arguably pound for pound the greatest fighters in the world at the minute. Crawford, though, came out different gravy. Put Spence down 3 times, and in the 9th round, the referee called it. It was, to be fair, quite a big left hook that snapped his neck back. Crawford's now the first man in history to be a 2-weight undisputed champion. Undisputed champion means, so in boxing, I know you're not huge on your boxing. You've got IBF, WBO, WBA, WBC, all the different belts. So there's different like classes within that weight division. He has held every belt in two different weight classes. The first man to ever do that. And last night was his 18th championship bout in a row. So he's had the titles now for 19 fights effectively. And now I think that cemented he is probably pound for pound the best fighter in the world.
Spence losing for the first time in 29 pro fights.
Yeah, Spence has been fantastic. And what I like about both of them is neither of them have dodged boxers. They've both fought people. I mean, don't get me wrong, Crawford's 35, Spence I think is 32, 33. They're both quite senior, but they're not. When Mayweather fought Pacquiao, they were senior, coming down on their careers. These are two guys that were world champions at the time, and both just fantastic fighters. So they're taking the big fights, which is what I like to see. What next? Probably a rematch, because whoever they fight next isn't going to be of the same calibre. So I'd like to see a rematch somewhere else. And what was funny was Crawford had asked Eminem last week to walk him out to the ring, and no one sort of, it was on Twitter, he like said it on Twitter, or X as it's now called.
X.
And Eminem introduced him and then walked him out, which I thought was quite, you normally get the lower sort of status rappers and things like that, but Eminem actually did, which I thought was quite cool. Football.
Yes. Do you want to talk about Kylian Mbappe?
He has turned down some serious money. Serious money.
It is... How old is he? He's not old. He's 23, 24.
I saw a stat early, and it was him and Henry at the age of 24. Something like... it was something like 500 games. Both Kylian Mbappe had played like 20 more. Henry had scored 124 goals, and Mbappe was on like 259.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yes, he's turned down some serious money, like ridiculous money. It's £19 a minute or something like that, or £19 a second. I can't remember.
It has to be, because it was 13 million a week.
Wow, so £19 a second. So while we've been talking, he's earned more than I will all year.
Yeah.
But the question you've got to ask yourself is why? Probably because he is so young. Think of who's gone. Big names at the moment. So obviously Ronaldo and Jordan Henderson this week, is it?
Yeah, he's gone on $100,000 a day, £700,000 a week.
What a great deal.
33, 34. I'm a bit uneasy on this one. He was a big advocate for the Liverpool area around LGBTQ, very inclusive, and then to go there. Yeah, Liverpool have openly said we wanted to keep him, so there was probably a bit of greed there.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, Henderson's gone, Mahrez has gone from Man City. He's top side of 30. Mane, after leaving Liverpool for Bayern Munich, pretty unimpressive season with Bayern. He's now in talks. I think Mbappe's motivation, he wants to play for Real Madrid. So I don't know how much you know. He's got a year left on his PSG contract. Either they sell him and he goes, or they just bench him for the year. They don't have to play him.
Okay.
And what that can do to someone is quite damaging. So one of the talks is that he'll go to Liverpool on loan for the season. Liverpool will pay a chunk of money for that. And then next year, end of contract, he'll go to Real Madrid. I think a little bit like the Messi situation. I mean, he's still going to get telephone numbers kind of money. But I think Mbappe knows that he will, when he's 30, probably be able to get double the money because of inflation and everything else around that league.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he knows that either way, he's set for life.
Yeah.
I did read if he's still at PSG on August 1st, he gets a £60 million loyalty bonus.
Amazing.
So I think that's probably in the back of his head that he doesn't need to go just yet.
Clearly loyal, like his own loyalty and his own kind of career ambitions. Is he? You've got some truly exceptional, outstanding players. Him being one of them. Haaland has done unbelievable things in this Premier League season just gone.
Yeah.
We're seeing the next generation now. We've had Ronaldo and we've had Messi, and they're still playing, but they're nowhere near the peak of what they used to be. And when we're talking Ballon d'Or, you've got two or three or maximum, well, two or three really maximum that you could put your name on as up for the Ballon d'Or. And these guys clearly don't just want to sell themselves to
the Saudi project.
Yeah. Which seems to be ramping up extremely quickly. It only seems like 3 weeks ago, we were talking about serious money and then all of a sudden Kylian Mbappe
doesn't want it. Yeah, I mean that is a ridiculous amount of money. St. Maximum's left Newcastle, it's a bit iffy. He's gone from Newcastle, who's a Saudi state-owned team, to the Saudi league that's the same state-owned league. to that. So
That probably just shows you the state of living in Newcastle.
no comment. Not a fan. Harry Kane is still at Tottenham.
Surprisingly.
Still at Tottenham. Yeah, I was talking with Tom, who is back next week on the return of the EFL season. Him being a Spurs fan, he thinks that Tuesday it will be the big one of Kane probably signing for Bayern Munich. So I think that's a silverware choice, not a money choice.
Yeah.
But yeah, he thinks that's pretty much going to be the case.
Yeah.
But I saw another thing as well. So Spurs, they go out and get another striker. They need a top world-class striker, 80 million. You pay him 150 grand a week for 4 or 5 years, that's going to cost you 122 million total. You could offer Kane 400 grand a week for the same period of time, and it'll cost you 104 million. What do you do? Like, I know there's a net spend there, you know, from the money you sell, but is it not worth keeping arguably the Premier League's greatest striker?
Yeah.
That's sometimes the ambition of Daniel Levy. He sees the pound signs, sees it as a business and not as what it, you know. Understand that in 3 years' time you're not going to have your 30 goal a season striker, and you're not going to finish in the top 4, and you're not going to get the Champions League money.
Yeah.
Last night before, saw Wrexham. They're over in America, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a couple of owners that you might have heard of. They played a Philadelphia Union, like a second team. They kicked off at 7 p.m. The game finished just after 11 p.m. Took over 4 hours to complete the game.
Why?
It was extreme heat in the first half. Extreme heat, so the game had to keep stopping. And then at half time, what happens in America when it gets extreme heat? Massive storm, thunder and lightning all around the stadium, around the pitch and things like that. Horrendous rain, had to wait for it all to be thingied away. So they obviously couldn't go out with the lightning and the pitch and things, but took 4 hours. You'd probably over here, I think, seen the game get called, but no, they just went back out and finished the second half off.
Fair enough.
4 hours to complete a game.
Do you know who won?
I believe it's draw. I think it was 1-1.
Okay.
Well done on that one. Yeah, I think it was a draw. If not, Wrexham won 1-0. It was a low scoring affair.
Not like when they played. Who did they play a few weeks ago? It was like the retired guys played one of the
USA Women's in a 7-a-side, and they won 13-0. It finish 1-1.
Yes. Okay. Philadelphia Union 2.
Got to get me up early if you're going to catch me out in a little quiz.
Yes. So, Women's World Cup. Couple of... We're well into it now.
Yeah.
The last...
There's been the end of the group games, I think, today for a couple of groups, isn't
Yes, there? Last 16. First 2 teams through to the last 16 are Switzerland and Norway. We've got the final group game for C and D tomorrow, and then E and F the following day. Colombia, stun is probably the correct word, Germany, especially because they beat, I think it was Morocco 6-0 in the first leg. Yeah. 2-1 to Colombia.
Quite a late winner as well.
Yeah.
94th minute, something like that.
England versus Denmark. England win 1-0. USA versus Netherlands. That was a draw. Now, this is really interesting. So, on the 1st of August, 8 a.m. UK time, unfortunately. So, probably most of us will be working. If Portugal win that game, the USA, which came into the tournament as favourites, will be out. Portugal currently sit on 3 points. USA currently sit on 4 points. So it will potentially go down to goal difference if those two do draw. Sorry, no. No, it wouldn't. So USA would get a point. Sorry, no. So if Portugal win, USA are out.
And is that the game USA v Portugal?
USA v Portugal.
An all or nothing.
all or nothing. The other game is the second in the group versus the fourth in the group. So the second in the group, I can't remember who that is. They're through. But yeah, big game. The Women's World Cup hasn't really been super high scoring. I know last time the Women's World Cup came round, it was like 13, 14, 15 nil.
I think USA beat, it was like Peru or something like that, 13-0 in a game.
Yeah. But no, we've had a couple of 6-0s, but we've had some consistently high scoring teams and teams consistently conceding. Quick quiz for you. So, coincidentally, these two are in the same group. If you know your groups, the highest goal difference, i.e., who's conceded, basically
Or scored the most.
Yeah.
So the highest positive.
Yeah, highest positive goal difference and highest or lowest.
Generally,
Negative.
you'd say Brazil. I know USA haven't been with how they've started. I think they won 1-0 and drew 1-1. So it's got to be Brazil or like Sweden, maybe.
No, Spain. Spain. They are +8, which isn't overly. I mean, you'd see 13-0, you'd be 13-0 up.
Yeah.
Obviously, the opposite end of the scale would be.
Is it Morocco then?
Close. You're thinking along the right lines. Africa. I'll be honest, I didn't even realise this team was in the tournament.
Is it Zambia or
Zambia.
something? Yeah, I did see.
Yes.
I did see. Yeah, I did see Zambia was in it.
They are currently -10.
Oh.
So
Yeah, in 2 games.
in 2 games.
Yeah, they need to do something about that. Tough, but I suppose when you look at like England played was it Haiti in their first game?
Yeah, they only, I think 1-0, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a tough game, and they said before, to be fair, this could be a tough game. A lot of the Haitian
Haitians? I don't know. Pass.
Sorry, Wycliffe. They play in the French league, so they do play at a good level. So just because the nation isn't predominantly known for that,
Like
they
Wales.
still they still they still have players that play in high leagues. This weekend saw the return of not the return, but the start of the summer series, ready for the Rugby World Cup on the 8th of September. Probably for me, going into my favourite time of the year. Although they are trialling a new... So in rugby, rugby's always been... You've got your VAR in football, but let's be fair, it's pretty poor. Rugby's TMO, which is third match official, television match official, has always been incredibly good. But what they're doing this year is they're trialling a new system. So rugby's had a few rule changes around tackle height, things like that, to protect the players more, around the head-on-head contacts, and now predominantly a straight red card. But they're now changing the tackle height to be sort of chest, below the chest kind of thing, which is going to be difficult, but it's the same rules for both teams, so they both have to get on board. They're trying a thing called a bunker TMO. So if there's something that on first and second look they can't make a decision, rugby's always had sin bins, 10 minutes, yellow card,
Yeah.
off you go. And what they'll then do, they'll have a TMO looking at that, and by the 8th minute will tell the referee, no, that is a red actually. So if you're not sure if it's yellow or red, you give them a yellow, get on with the game. And whilst they get on with the game, another referee will take a closer look and decide if that is a red or not. So you could get a yellow, and whilst you're sat in the sin bin, get a red. Instead of waiting for it to be, instead of, playback.
Yeah. I suppose it
VAR,
improves the flow and it
Yeah,
improves
with VAR, we've seen it where we have to wait 4 or 5 minutes for a decision to be made. In this, they're gonna look. Is that a yellow? Is that a red? Do you know what? It's a yellow, and someone else will come back to it.
There's a couple of sports that have done that in the past to try and increase the
Not like this. They
flow
have
of the game.
Yeah, not so much like this, but
No, but I mean just generally to speed, rather than stop, we pause, like no play. People switch off, so people get bored.
Yeah.
Unless you're watching your team, you flick over. There's thousands of sports channels. But yeah, just to increase the flow of
they've
it.
generally been pretty good at it. But I think this will help with a lot of decisions and help just get rid and not look at too much in depth. Scotland beat Italy yesterday, 25-13. Not really much to look into that, just due to it's the friendlies effectively. They're just friendlies going into the World Cup for fitness. There's a rugby championship, which is a bit of a Southern Hemisphere thing, a little bit like our Six Nations, but not to the esteemed level of the Six Nations. They don't all go for it. South Africa beat Argentina in the third place playoff, and New Zealand trounced Australia 38-7. Next weekend is most of the teams' sort of series starts. The big one is a friendly, is Wales England. We've got 2 games. I don't understand why we've done it, because there's no such thing in rugby as a friendly between Wales and England. We're going to you leave everything on the pitch, and unfortunately we're already battling with like Toby Faletau's fitness. I don't think he's going to be fit for the game, but should be for the World Cup. I think we will lose a couple of players to these friendlies.
Yeah, where actually think bigger picture. When we do come into the World Cup, when we do come into like large tournaments series,
you want them players,
yeah.
And I just can't see us putting out. We'll put out a couple of fringe players, but we'll not.
Who's organised it? Is it just the?
It's just they are. Yeah, the RFU tend to do them. It's quite a common thing. This and
monetisation.
No, they just don't like to. The World Cup's in France. You don't want to be flying to Australia to play Australia. You don't want to be flying to New Zealand, and alternatively, you probably don't want New Zealand being over here for the next 6 weeks, 7 weeks. Prior to the World Cup, you want to be getting the rugby and getting over, and then acclimatising. So we just play the local teams, if you like. So Scotland play France, Ireland play Italy, New Zealand, Aussie, Australia, Argentina, South Africa again. So they're the Southern Hemisphere teams are sort of playing each other, and we're playing each other up here, kind of thing. So we'll
still a bit of a trek from South Africa to Australia.
Yes, and the fact that Argentina are over there as well.
That must be 12 hours apart and 12 hours apart.
Yes, but they'll all be in a little hub, but rather than everyone be over here, I guess they can't
or us
accommodate
being
it.
over there.
Yeah, and there's no point us being over there because we've got to come back to France. So, but we'll have the Rugby World Cup pre-event special before the World Cup, and it will be after the EFL and the Prem.
Yes.
And the Formula 1 break.
I will be doing a Formula 1 special too.
I'll be doing the EFL and the Premier League.
So lots of specials. So what we've got: the rugby special, Formula 1 special, EFL, Premier League.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Sportscast podcast. Again, you can get us on our social, on Instagram and Twitter, at SportscastPodUK. Over the next couple of weeks, we will have some pre-event specials building up to the start of the EFL and the Premier League. So keep an eye on our socials, ready for those coming out. I've been Liam.
I've been Jordan.
Thank you very much.